My name is Aaron Lopresti. I've been a comic book artist, a commercial illustrator, and a writer for over 25 years, and this is my YouTube channel. Hey, thanks for joining me for episode 26. Can't believe it's that many episodes already. Today we're going to take a look at my graded comics collection. I don't have many, only 24 comics that are actually either graded by CGC or CBCS. But I've had a lot of people asking me, hey, what's in your collection? What have you got? Show us the good stuff. So we're going to go through and take a look at each one of these 24 books that I have graded, and maybe a little story behind the ones that have some interesting backstory. So let's get going. Avengers Number 4, the first Silver Age appearance of Captain America, and it's 6.5. This is CGC graded. I picked this up, I think 2 years ago now at San Diego. I paid about market value for it because it was one of those books that was like, I got to have this. It's since gone up a couple $100, so I feel like it was a good investment. I think anytime you get a book of, this sort of importance with this, first appearance, it's worth getting if you can. I could only afford a 6.5, but that's a pretty nice 6.5, so I'm happy. So how about an Avengers 57, graded 9.2, first appearance of the Vision. I got this a year ago at San Diego for about $200 under market value, so I felt pretty good about the buy. And I had a copy that had a tear in the cover, and I've been for years wanting to replace it. So I got the opportunity and jumped on it last year. Here we have Avengers 144 at 9.2, first appearance of the Hellcat. I got to admit, the only reason I have this is because it was on a Comic Link auction, and I had bought another book that was relatively inexpensive, and I didn't want to pay shipping on just one CGC book, so I found another one and got a good deal on this, and it was a fairly important book for a 70s book, and so I got this under guide and combined the two and combined shipping, so it ended up being a pretty good deal. Here's the single most expensive book I have in my collection. This is a Captain America Comics number 18, World War II comic, Golden Age. I've always wanted to get a timely book, and this one was at Bedrock City, and I worked out a deal that involved a lot of trade from my collection, a lot of cash, me selling stuff to raise cash to pay for it. But I was able to swing the deal. Obviously, it doesn't have a very flattering depiction of the Japanese on the cover, but considering it was World War II and the country was at war with Japan, it's not surprising that they would depict the enemy as monsters, but it's a great piece of nostalgia and World War II propaganda, really. So it's a treasured book in my collection, although I wouldn't be above trading it up for even a more expensive Golden Age book, but at least I have one. Let's go from Golden Age Captain America to Silver Age Captain America. This is Captain America number 100 from 1968, graded 9.2. This is essentially Cap's first issue of his modern series that's, of course, started in the Silver Age in 1968. When this originally came across my path at a convention, it was in that $700 to $800 range, and it was too much cash for me to lay out at that time. So the guy that had it decided he would trade it for a couple of color commissions, which I gladly did. I get a lot of my expensive comics by trading art for it, or for them. So once I got this, I was like, well, once I've got the expensive book, now I can collect the rest of the series. So I've been working on my Captain America series for a couple of years now, starting with this one. From Captain America, we jump to Captain Marvel, at least the Marvel version of Captain Marvel. This is issue number 17, and this is graded at 9.2. This is one of the few books that I paid probably a little bit too much money for. This book had gotten hot just like a year or so ago, and it looked like it was really going to go through the roof. So I got a 9.2 copy because I figured if I didn't act at that point, it would get too expensive and then I wouldn't want to get it. So I paid probably $50 more than its market value at the time, and it really hasn't gone up much since. So, but it's still a cool book to have, and it is a 9.2, so I'll hang on to it and we'll see what happens over the long term. This is Captain Marvel 32, part of the Jim Starlin run on Captain Marvel. It's a 9.2. There's nothing particularly special about this book, except that I have the entire run of Starlin's Captain Marvels in near mint, and I didn't have this one in near mint. So I found a copy of it on Comic Link. It was the auction that I actually got a pretty good deal on this book for actually under $100. And that's why I went and got the Avengers 144, the first appearance of Hellcat that I showed you earlier, in the same auction so I could combine shipping. So I wasn't paying, $25 for shipping on a single book that I paid less than $100 on. So anyway, normally I wouldn't buy a book like this slabbed, but it was there, and like I said, I got it under guide, so I grabbed it. Here's another Golden Age gem, Captain Marvel Jr. number 4. This has a classic World War II cover, and it's by the phenomenal Mac Rayboy. It's a 6.5, which for any Golden Age book or any book from early 60s back to the Golden Age, 6.5 is a really good grade. Very solid book, because these are obviously very hard to find in super high grade, and if you can, they're super expensive. This is also the first book that I took out of my collection and sent in to get graded. I bought it as a 6.5 from Metropolis Comics, and it returned as a 6.5 from CBCS. So that worked out really well. You also notice at the top there's some very small writing up there that says from the personal collection of Aaron Lopresti. I had him put that on the label of the carrying case just for the heck of it. Here we have Detective Comics 425. This is a near mint minus 9.2 graded as well. The obvious reason I got this was the Bernie Wrightson cover. I actually had a copy of this book, but it was only in VF, and I'm very uptight about getting books in near mint if the near mint price is affordable. And since this one was, I finally found one on eBay that was, I don't know, about $30 under guide, $35 under guide, so I grabbed it. Again, I don't normally buy slabbed books that would be valued under, 150 bucks. But if I can get one at a good deal that's under guide like this, then, why not? How about a House of Mystery 195 with a really cool Wrightson cover? This is a 9.4. The streaking you see across it there is, I left it in the bag when I scanned it, which probably wasn't a great idea. The reason I got this is because I'm a big Wrightson fan, but the bigger reason is there is a Swamp Thing-like story in this book that came out before Swamp Thing. So it's kind of looked at as a Swamp Thing tryout. So it does have a little higher interest from collectors in it, making it worth a little bit more than the average issue around it. This is one of the most favorite books in my collection. This is Incredible Hulk number 6 in a 6.0. I have wanted this book since I was a kid and first saw it in the price guide, probably when I was like 12 years old. I never thought I'd get one, but I've been keeping my eye open, and I saw one on a Comic Link auction, so I kept my eye on it, and I was lucky enough to end up getting it for like $200 under market value. The interesting thing about this copy is there's no chipping up on the right-hand side of the book. Most of these old Hulk books have chipping along the side of them, and this one doesn't, so it's a really nice 6.0. And again, I think I mentioned earlier that these really old books, and I believe this is from 1962, these books in 6.0, which is a fine, are really solid copies because most of them are just trashed. So I look at a 6.0 on a book like this as actually being like high grade, even though technically it's not, but it's a nice solid looking book and it's a desirable copy to have. This is Journey into Mystery number 112, a pretty significant issue, in 6.5. Now, this is a book that I traded a commission for 15 years ago, and I sent it in to get it graded and came back a little disappointed. I was expecting this to be in that 7.5, maybe an 8.0 range. It's a very sharp looking book, but that's the risk you take when you send books in to get them graded. You may think one thing and come back something totally different. So it's still a nice, valuable book and a solid grade, but I'm a little disappointed that it didn't grade out higher. Here we have Power Man number 48, graded at a 9.4. This is the first team-up of Power Man and Iron Fist before the series actually became Power Man and Iron Fist. This book showed some collectible promise because of the Netflix TV shows. So it started to jump up a little bit, so I thought, well, maybe it's a book I should be looking for. Now, normally, again, this is not a book in the price range that I would maybe shell out a few extra bucks to get a slabbed copy, but this showed up on eBay, and once again, I paid $20 to $30 under what the market value on the book was, so I figured if I can get a slab book under guide, I'm going to do it. So that's how I ended up with this one. Here we have Shock Suspense Stories number 13. This is an old EC comic from the 50s. The significance of this is that it's Frazetta's only solo story he did for EC Comics. In other words, it's the only one where he penciled and inked it himself. It's a 7.5, which is a bit disappointing because I bought this about 30 years ago as a 9.0. And so when I sent it in to get it graded, I expected it to come back no worse than an 8 and hoping for an 8.5 or a 9. And they claimed there was some invisible creases in the corner that I still can't see to this day. But anyway, so it came back as a 7.5, which is still a solid grade for this book and a desirable grade for this book, but it's disappointing from what I actually thought it was going to be. But I did have them put from the personal collection of Aaron Lopresti up at the top again on this one too. This is a Strange Tales 107, classic battle between the Submariner and the Human Torch. And it's only a 5.5, which really ticked me off. This is one of the books that made me vow never to send in another book to get graded. Because I had this as a raw book, and it was sold to me at San Diego as a 7.0. I still think that's closer to the actual grade than what it got. But I got it graded because it's an old book, and those are the only ones I really consider getting graded. I mean, I'll buy graded books that are already graded, but I'm not going to take books out of my collection and send them in to get graded because it's just too much of a risk. This was an older book, so I thought, well, I'll send it in like I sent in a few of my Golden Age books, and I was just really super disappointed with the grade on it. I quite frankly think it's BS, but what are you going to do? I'm stuck with it now. But it's still an important book, and it's a really nice looking book. It looks like a 7.0, even if it graded at a 5.5. So I'm happy to have it in my collection. I just wish it was graded a little bit higher. From Strange Tales to Tales of Suspense. This is Tales of Suspense 15. It is a 6.5, which, let me reinforce, a book this old, and especially a Kirby Monster book, they don't show up in high grade very often, so 6.5 is a really good grade on this book. Bedrock City had this, and it was part of a bigger trade deal that I made. There's certain Kirby Monster books that I just love the covers to, and this is one of them. I've got a couple more I'm still looking for, but I have several others in my collection that just aren't graded. But since we're only looking at graded books on this video, we'll have to save those for another time. Sticking with Tales of Suspense, this is number 76 in a 9.2. That's a near mint minus. This has the second appearance of Batroc the Leaper in his first cover appearance. This, again, is not a book that I would normally have bought slabbed because it's only worth about 125 bucks, but I got it on Comic Link under market value, so I jumped at the chance, and here it is. I collect Tales of Suspense, at least the ones featuring Iron Man and Captain America in them, and I still have several more to get, but I do have quite a few, and I think this is the only one I have, though, that's actually slabbed. This is a pretty groovy issue of Tales to Astonish. This is number 69, 9.2, near mint minus. I have no explanation of why I actually got this book, except I was perusing on Comic Link, which is a great place to, if you're looking to buy slabbed books, it's a great place to shop. But anyway, so I was on Comic Link. I saw this. I liked the cover. I can't tell you why. I guess maybe the groovy little Hulk there by Kirby with the leader in the background. I just really liked the cover image. And again, I got it for well under market value. So I jumped on it as the countdown went to the last 10 seconds. I jumped in and bid on it and got it. This is Thor 158 in 9.2. This is definitely what you would call a coronavirus quarantine boredom buy. Now, I do collect Thor, and this is an issue I didn't have. It retells his origin, so it's kind of an important issue, but I wasn't necessarily looking. It's not like super high on my list to get, but I saw it on eBay, and again, I thought it was priced really well under market value. So, as you probably learned through this video, I'm not one to pass by a good deal on a slabbed book. So I got it and add it to my Thor collection, although I have very few Thors that are actually slabbed. I do have a lot of high-grade ones, though. This is a Feature Comics number 62 in 7.5. Also had on there from the personal collection of Aaron Lopresti. This is a book I bought off eBay 20 years ago. I got it because of the terrific Reed Crandall cover. I'm a big Reed Crandall fan. And it was in such nice condition, I thought I was going to jump on it. So I did. I held on to it for a long time. I sent it into CBCS with some of my other Golden Age books at the same time. And it came back a 7.5. I was hoping for an 8, but hey, when you're rolling the dice on grading, a 7 point, only being half off your original grade that you thought it was going to be is pretty good. So I'm pretty happy with it. It's not very often you find these older books, especially that old from 1942, in that good a shape. This is National Comics number 21, graded at 7.5. This is another book I sent in to get graded. It has a classic Lou Fine cover of Uncle Sam beating up the Germans. I got this about the same time off of eBay that I got that Feature Comics. And every once in a while, there's a book in your collection that you buy or you bought 20, 30, 40 years ago, and you're so glad you did. This book has gone off the charts. I just saw a graded copy of this, 3.5, restored, went for 560 bucks. So what is my 7.5 worth unrestored? I don't know. I think a lot. The other thing that's interesting about this is there's only 4 graded copies right now out there, and this is the second highest graded book. The very first one is the Mile High copy, which is a 9.6, but I have the second highest graded copy at 7.5 that's out there right now. Now, there may be other copies of this that are in better shape, they just haven't been graded, but out of the ones that have been graded, this is the second best. So I'm feeling pretty good about this book. Now, as happy as I am about the National Comics 21, this National Comics number 32, I am as equally ticked about. It only graded at a 5.0. I sent this in to get graded as well to CBCS, and it came back a 5.0. Now, if you look closely at this book, it looks more like an 8.0 or maybe even a 9. And when it came back as a 5, my head almost exploded. But then I looked in the small print up at the top, loose centerfold. I had no idea that the centerfold in this book was detached. I bought it at a convention in Canada back then, I didn't even hardly look at the back of the cover. I'd look at the front of the cover. If it looked like it was in great shape, I'd buy it. I didn't even take it out and flip through it. And to find out that it had a loose centerfold and was only graded at a 5.0 when if the centerfold had been attached, it probably would have been up around an 8.0 or better, was really disappointing. But that'll teach me to send my books in to get them graded, right? This is A Journey into Mystery with Thor, number 121, graded at a 9.4. That's more like it. This was actually part of a trade deal I made with Bedrock City a few years ago. I actually already had a copy of this, but it was like in VG condition. And all my other Journey into Mysteries that I have are very high grade, so I was like, I wanted to upgrade this one. And although duplicating a book I already have is not always first on my list, it turned out to be the best book that they had that was available for this trade deal I was doing for some artwork. So I took it, and glad to have it. So it kind of keeps my threshold of quality and my Journey into Mysteries up there pretty high. Here we have a Whiz Comics number 22 with the classic cover of Shazam and Billy Batson, which they call the impossible cover because they both can't appear at the same time. But this is by C.C. Beck, who is a great draftsman, an artist of the Golden Age. This is a 6.5. Now, I told the story of how I got this on a previous video, so I won't go into the sordid details. But let's just say it's a book that I overpaid for and was happy to overpay for it because I just wanted it. And I know how hard this book is to get, and especially in a really solid grade like a 6.5. So anyway, there you have it. Excuse me. There's my 24 graded, slabbed, if you will, book collection that's about to grow as I have my eye on Haunt of Fear number 14, which is the first appearance of the Old Witch that I'm kind of looking at right now and may pull the trigger on sooner than later. But we'll have to wait and see. Anyway, thank you so much for joining me for a video. It's been a long time. I've been doing a lot of live feeds and live streams, and this is the first Talking Comics and Art with Aaron Lopresti episode that I've done in quite some time. So for you comic collector fans out there, and friends of mine on social media, you just got an inside look at what's sitting in my closet in my studio. So again, thanks for joining me, and please remember to check out my website. And I'm all over social media and Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And I have a YouTube channel, which you're watching right now, so check out some of my older videos if you have a chance. Subscribe, click that you like it even if you didn't, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.